Shall we start the week as you mean to go on? I absolutely don't want anyone thinking I was trigger happy and I pressed the button too early, because I didn't.
No.
Absolutely.
Because you being one of the Britain's top producers for some of the top radio stations, that would never happen.
No.
Because that would just make you look like an amateur.
Oh, so silly.
Let's throw it out of the gap there. And the undersigned's orders, Mr. Alec Marsh has the white flag up, and they're off. And Kimmy Lashmar in the colours of Her Majesty the Queen on the far side there. Yay, hello. Followed very closely by Sen Munro in the colours of Sturby Breesley. Hello, all. Angela Lee making a very good turn as they come up to the first fence. They're all safely over that. Hey up. Ed Grossman there, Monday. Ed Grossman, the favourite to win, but is being pushed very heavily there by Sen Munro. This makes me think of my dad and all the money he lost. Ramsey Y. Masalam. Hello, boys. That's lovely. Lovely to know you're all.
Ramsey sounds like that, but I'd love it if he did, because I think that would be quite funny.
Hello, I'm Ramsey Masalam. Paul Claridge. Hello, chaps and chapasses. Another week of broadcasting excellence. What station do you think he's tuned to? Can't be us. That's
hey, what are you listening to?
Hey. Anyway, here's some advice for everybody. And Phil, you're technical. You're known as the chic geek, so you might want to make a note, because I think this is a learning curve for you. If you don't want to give yourself 4 days of total aggravation, when you're plugging in your laptop, try not to drop some of it into your dog's water bowl.
Yes, that is quite sound advice you've just given there, RK. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, because I know many of you might be thinking of doing that. But I can tell you from personal experience, please don't.
I do have to let you know, as a little precautionary note, that by and large, laptops and other electronic devices very scarcely get thirsty.
You're kidding me. Every day's a school day. Who knew? I'm plugging my laptop in, and like a moron, I drop my power cable into my water bowl.
Shocking.
Anyway, this is what I'm shocking. I'm electric. I'm shocking. I'm electric. Anyway, so this morning, so I had to pre-order another power lead. This is so boring. Bear with me. And Amazon couldn't do it till like the middle of this week. No good. So, and I didn't want to be working on my phone, although it seemed to work fine. But I couldn't read all your lovely messages. So, ordered it at Curry's, PC World, and you can only do click and collect. I didn't know that. So I went down on Friday, click and collect, order the whole thing. And I was there first thing this morning, straight out of the gates there. And boy, they got it down to a fine art. It's serious. Phil and I were chatting about this off air. And you don't often hear me say, or anybody say, hey, Curry's PC World, really good job. Excellent. Excellent. They've really taken this whole safety thing very, very seriously. I was amazed at the measures they'd put in. It's terrific.
Good work.
Well done.
Stephen March. Phil, I don't mean to alarm you, but your jacket has Tipp-Ex all around the lapels. Sorry, I hate to tell you, Stephen, but I'm going to have to correct you there.
It gets better and better. Please, Ramsey, your language, it's very cold in the Surrey Hills, says right, Ramsey. Hello there, Michelle Dania Hayward.
I think I can translate. What Ramsey's actually saying is it's frightfully chilly.
Frightfully chilly. Ed Grossman, I like PC World. I like standing there for 25 minutes waiting for someone to come over. It just drives me mad. They're always busy.
I always wondered who they kept it open for, and now I know. Very good.
That's it, just for Ed.
By the way, good Monday, guys.
Oh, that's quite clever. That's quite clever. Is she hovering around in the kitchen, or what was she doing today?
I don't know. I was in the kitchen earlier on today. I was making some soup for a change, because Monday's soup day. As you know, Friday's holiday, and Monday is soup day. Sunday's pancake day. I make pancakes on Sunday.
I like the way you've got yourself organised. Mine is take some more medication day, and who the hell cares? Paul Claridge, Russ Kane, now make Gary Shale wrote the PC World jingle. Did he really? Blimey, I didn't know that. Do you know how many times, Michelle, I've made that gag? I'm not a number, I am a free man. It's Patrick McGowan from The Prisoner. Dun, 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 dun.
And, you know, curiously enough, I don't know where I saw it, but I saw a photo of him the other day, crop up on social media. And I know exactly where it was. So someone who I knew who'd posted a photo of the prisoner on Facebook, and I thought, oh, should I send my own little photo of me in my prisoner jacket? I thought I could well do. But
Phil,
I did in the end.
Phil, be seeing you. Be seeing you.
Well, quite.
Do you remember? Oh, no, you're way too young. Do you know what? Because that was my dad's timber on the prisoner. And I had the very last script and I lost it. The last script of the last episode ever of The Prisoner.
Oh,
I was a kid. Don't. I also lost my Beatles program from the Beatles concert. So two things I really regret losing, apart from my mind. Now we've got a very special guest today.
Russ has also lost a lottery ticket there, ladies and gentlemen.
That is my nightmare. That is my nightmare.
God.
Oh, Phil, please play the theme from Please, Sir, when you wear your school blazers. Da 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 da, something like that. Was that Police or the Fenn Street Gang? Da da ding 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 da 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 da. I don't think that was Doctor in the House. Can't remember. Somebody find it. Oh.
There you go. Anyway, there's enough of that. Anyway,
that was pretty close. That was pretty close, considering.
Yeah,
I haven't heard it for 3,000 years.
Very good.
That's good. Right, now we have a special guest, and I tell you why I have invited our special guest to join Philip and myself, because he's
talk to me
for an hour. Pardon?
I said because he didn't talk to me for an hour.
Well, yeah, obviously, because he is fuming, and he's one of my best mates. He's part of the Mystery Secret Cigar Trio. Which we can't even meet anymore. It's just doing my head in. Anywho, he has much to say. And when he was recounting his stories over the weekend, I said, you've got to come on Monday because there's a lot to talk about here that's very important. So without further ado, may we invite... Now, Phil, please do the introduction.
Oh, it was going so swimmingly. I was going to.
No, I felt. Oh my God, you got Linda Dave. I lost the Beatles autographs they got at the Hammersmith Apollo. It was the Hammersmith Odeon. It was the Christmas show. It was 64 or 65, Linda. My dad, as a surprise, the nicest thing. My father, who was not, and he said, "I've got tickets to see the Beatles." And I went, "What?" He and I went off to see the Beatles. Best. I remember every second of that night. I don't know. I was a little kid. I remember every second of that night. Oh, hello, Kimmy. From Patrick McGowan was in Hell's Drivers. Oh, wow. Okay.
Should we go from one great musician to another great musician? Well, I know the Beatles were four great musicians, but you know what I mean. To another. Ladies and gentlemen, we're delighted to say that joining us on the Daily Show on Monday is none other than Ray Gelato. Hello, Ray. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon. Who knows what bloody day it is? How are you?
That's it, basically. That's my okay.
I mean, I don't think Jimmy Kimmel could have introduced you any better, if I'm honest. Right.
Hey now.
Now, and also, let's dive straight in at the deep end here, because you've come to speak to us about, well, it's quite, you're actually being quite serious today. Not that you're not always, but, you know.
He's got his serious face on.
You know, I like to go online and have a laugh and take people's minds off the troubles of the day. But this was quite a harrowing experience on Friday. And it was basically that my mother and father live in Latimer Road, West London, where I grew up. And a couple of days before Wednesday, they told me the authorities had run out of the virus. Run out of the vaccine, not the virus. And so, you know, we phoned various people up, the doctor and whatever, and it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks before they'd have their vaccination. My mother's 87 and my dad's 85. And so I was quite, extremely worried. Anyway, Mum phoned me up Thursday and said, can you pick us up? Which obviously I'm not comfortable doing, but they've got no other means of getting to the hospital because St. Charles Hospital in West London had the had made an appointment for him to have a vaccine at 3:00. So I said, great, it's fantastic news. So pick them up, you know, masked up and all that business. Drove down to St. Charles, parked up, and for once the parking in the hospital was free. We didn't think any more of it, and we toddled. You know, they're very slow moving, so I get them to the where the vaccination is supposed to take place, and it was like a scene out of something out of Charles Dickens. I've never seen anything like it, and I've actually never, you know, it really felt so. It was a harrowing experience. There was literally hundreds of old elderly people, mostly over the age of 80. Some, like my mother, finding it very hard to stand and walk. Some couldn't walk, some were in wheelchairs, packed into a long, old-fashioned corridor. No social distancing because there was too many people to social distance.
Oh, my God.
We were told our appointment was at 3:00. Now, I had to beg for a seat because there was no seats. There was people standing. It was the most unbelievable chaos I've ever seen, and it was horrendous. And you know, a lot of elderly people's masks were sort of like this because people, you know, elderly people are elderly people. My father was the same. I kept saying to Dad, "Please, Dad, put your mask up," because it was under his nose, and he, you know, doesn't realise and whatever. And to cut a long story short, we eventually got some seats. I kept giving my seat up, obviously, to people who needed it more. One, I was afraid for my parents. Two, I was afraid for everybody else. And three, I was afraid for myself. And it was basically a huge monumental cock-up because I complained, as many other people did, to the staff, and who were doing an amazing job, who were actually scared themselves. And they said, you know, they couldn't really get to the bottom of what the cock-up was. Somebody blamed NHS England, another one blamed the government for trying to get the figures looking like they're vaccinating so many people, despite the fact they were telling us that everything they tell us to do, we were not to do, they tell us not to be, you know, together, whatever, and be careful of the vulnerable in society. And they had shoved everybody together in this situation. And it was absolutely disgraceful. And I'm not here to knock the NHS. I'm not doing that at all. So I don't know what was going on here. But it was an absolute mess, and I'll be extremely surprised if several people don't get extremely sick. What I saw, and we were there for 2 hours. 2 hours, one toilet, one visit. You know, you've got elderly people that can't walk, so you got one toilet. The other toilet was locked, and my mother needed to go for a wee at the end, and I said, "No, got to hold it. We got to get the hell out of here." That's how bad it was. And it was honestly the most horrendous experience, and in my opinion, a disgrace. I know they've got to vaccinate so many people, of course, but this is putting people at risk. And I couldn't understand it. And the staff were livid. Everyone I spoke to were livid as well about it. And no one could really explain why they had booked so many people on the same bloody day. And when we left at 5:00, after being there at 3, there was queuing. It was even worse. There seemed to be more and more people in there. Elderly people just on their feet. And like I say, there was no facilities. By the way, as well, just quickly, I'm sorry to ramble on, but I went down.
There's no rush, Ray. You take your time. It's important.
I went down to get a water into the hotel canteen and I asked my mum and dad if they wanted some. They said no, because obviously they don't want to take their masks off. Yeah. You can't take your mask off to drink. So I thought, well, I'll have a sneaky drink of a bit of water or Coke in the corridor. And the guy in the canteen didn't have a mask on. Didn't have
in the hospital.
Yep. Yeah, I swear. Yeah, I didn't have a mask on.
How are we supposed to ever eradicate this thing?
I don't know.
This is nuts. I mean, if you compare it, and just for a second, this is a hospital, right? I had to get my stupid power lead to do the show and get my laptop back working, right? After 4 days. And if PC World Courage can put in the most extraordinary stringent regulations and hygiene, I was really knocked out by it. How can a hospital not do it? Did you say something to the idiot in the canteen?
Yeah,
no excuse.
I said, what about the mask, mate? And he brushed me off. I'm not even sure if he understood what I said. I'll be honest with you, I just wanted to get out of there, and I was and also my father at one point said, I want to go. I don't feel comfortable. I'm not comfortable with the vaccine anyway, because he's a little scared. You know, he reads the news and a little bit worried. And I had to really persuade him to stay. I said, please, at least we've just got to stay, because I don't know when the next appointment will be. And I'm walking around now not knowing whether I've done the right thing or not. Because we were basically just thinking we've got to get this vaccine done. But I'm talking about a long kind of old-fashioned hospital corridor packed with vulnerable people, packed,
right.
And yes,
absolutely know that this is not the ideal setup in terms of, you say, packed with vulnerable people. But the only thing that I would cling on to, and I know it's so easy for me to say because I wasn't there, I didn't witness it, and it wasn't my folks involved or anything like that. But the only thing I'd cling on to is that if everyone in that corridor was classed as one vulnerable category, one would hope that by and large they were all quite sensible to date, have been shielding away from people, haven't come into contact with many people, and possibly there's a very strong chance that they would have been sort of, as it were, so isolated for however many weeks and months that they might not have necessarily been exposed to anything. That's the only way I'd look at it. But at the same time, I struggle to understand why on earth in a hospital environment of all places, there wasn't someone enforcing the rules. For heaven's sakes.
Nobody. And again, I'm not on here to pop at the NHS, because they're doing an incredible job under impossible circumstances that we've never had to deal with before. Again, I can't point the finger until I know who's responsible. I suspect it's the local authority and the government trying to just say, well, look, we're doing all these people, boom, boom. But and a knee-jerk panic reaction of getting everybody seemed to be booked at the same time.
You see, this, Ray, I think is the key. I assume your mum and dad got, if you don't mind me asking, how old are they?
My mum's 87 and my dad's 85.
There you go. So I'm assuming they bless them. And I've seen loads of pictures of you with them, of course.
Yeah.
I assume they receive a letter from the hospital, is it, or the local authority?
It was from the hospital, the text they got, because it's all done by text on their phones. And it was from the first one, as I said, there was no vaccinations available for a couple of weeks. And then they got the vaccines and said immediately, come in on Friday. So I suspect this was a panicked reaction. Oh, we've got the vaccine, let's get everyone in. And somebody had done a severe cock up. And I said to one lady, I said, this is appalling. I said, people are going to die here. Honestly, I said, this is really terrible. And she said, yeah. I couldn't agree more. That was her words. And I just said to her, who's responsible for this? Because it's appalling. And she said, well, it's NHS England. That was her words, not mine. And she was one of the nurses.
Well, Phil, NHS England, because I get quite confused with this. You obviously got the hospital staff and you got admin staff. NHS England means what? To be precise.
NHS England are the governing body who will oversee the runnings of hospitals, which are normally subdivided by different trusts. So you have, for example, for the Royal Free, you've got the Royal Free Trust, which I think manages the Royal Free, and it also manages, I've got a strange feeling Royal Free Trust also manages Barnet Hospital as well. I don't know why I think that. But anyway, I know that they have got a few hospitals in their books. So they are the ones who are sort of the local, as it were, powers over the hospitals individually. And then NHS England, as it were, is a sort of the governing body, the guidelines behind it.
It sounds to me like a complete administrative error, because you must know, I mean, the powers that be must know, you've got X number of people, each vaccination takes Y amount of time, and you would logistically say, let's spread it out so you're in every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, something like that. Ed Grossman's put in a confusing comment here. Russ, Ray, I had that text. It was a scam.
No.
Confused.
No. Ed is saying that he had that text message. You know, the text messages going around scamming or trying to scam people out of money into getting the vaccination.
Oh, right. Sorry, Ed. I misunderstood. Yeah. Well, let them rot in hell. That's Melanie Hutchins is saying we've got no vaccinations in our area. Melanie, remind me, where are you? I can't remember where it is. And messages in from Spain. And the elderly are punctual, so no wonder there was a queue. Elderly are punctual because you've got people like Ray, like I used to do with my mum, making sure that your parents are there on time because you care, you love them, and you want them to be safe. They can't get there under their own steam. They're 85, 87, for God's sake. So you got to do that. Kimmy Lashmar is saying, sadly, they seem to have no respect for the elderly. Well, but Ray, your caring is faultless, so don't be so hard on yourself.
Well, I didn't know. The decision that you've got to make is: do you stay and soldier on with it and be a safe?
You had to, Ray. You had to. I'm saying this. I'm saying this not as co-host of the show. I'm saying this as your mate. You had to do it. I would have stuck it. I absolutely would have stayed because
we don't know when it's going to be. When they were vaccinated again, and they are.
And how would you feel? And I can say this to you because I know you so well. How would you feel? God forbid, 1,000,000 times, right? You say, "Come on, Mum. Come on, Dad. We're out of here." Then they get COVID. You'd beat yourself up forever. So you can't do that. Johnny Hutchins is in Romney Marsh.
Might suggest as well that let's not forget that sort of if they do at least have the vaccine, then it means that their systems can be building up some sort of immunity. And by and large, by the sound of it, I mean, apart from that fool in the canteen, you said that a lot of people were wearing masks. Okay, it's not great they weren't all covering their noses, but without doubt, the most important thing is covering the mouth. Yes, they should cover noses as well, no doubt about it. But the projection comes primarily from the mouth. So at the very least, there was some effort to do
Everybody had a mask apart from the guy in the canteen.
So, I mean, that's got to be...
He wasn't touching food, Ray. That's the main thing.
Oh, wait.
That's surely... You're crying.
No, but that has to be something to cling on to. And again, I know it's so easy for me to sit here and say that, but that's I'm just trying to sort of take away what I would think of as the positives out of it, is that they have at least had the vaccination. They have also sort of been surrounded, by a lot of vulnerable people, but the clue is that they were vulnerable, and that hopefully they would have been taking it as cautiously, even if they weren't socially distancing, taking it as cautiously in the previous ones as your folks would have been. And then I hope that as well that the fact that most of them were wearing masks, even if not all of them wearing properly, again, will go some way. Something as silly as I take it your parents, as soon as they got back, wash their hands and stuff like that. So that can also help.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and also, I'm guessing, to sort of endorse what Phil is saying, that the hospital corridor, Victorian, Dickensian though it may have been, will have been sanitized.
Oh, I'll tell you, now they were sanitizing the chairs or what chairs they had. And I'll tell you, I can't fault any of the staff, and that's not why I'm here. There was one guy running up and down trying to find chairs. It was just ill prepared. They hadn't prepared enough seats. So there was people who couldn't virtually stand, who on sticks or whatever it is, who didn't have the seats when they needed them. But they weren't sanitizing. Yes, they were sanitizing.
Here's the other side of the coin. And to be very clear, Ray has said, and I'm endorsing what he's saying, and I know Phil feels the same, that he is not knocking the NHS, he's knocking this situation.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
He's not knocking the staff. What the hell? They probably
they were brilliant. They were
thought, what the hell? And they saw Q. Now, Angela Lee, my 87-year-old father-in-law has had his vaccination in Leeds, very well organised. Well, it's a London thing, isn't it?
Well, I've heard, because I put a little post up on Facebook, and I've heard most cases or most vaccinations seem to have been extremely well organised, in and out in 20 minutes, half hour. This was just dreadful. 2 hours in this situation.
It's weird. It's like they've got a Petri dish, a Petri Hoskin dish, and they're just thinking, well, how bad can we make this situation? That's what's so weird. Ramsey is saying, it sounds terrible, Ray, and Ramsey's making a good point. Would you like to read it out, Phil?
The more I hear it, the more I think 2021 will be just like 2020, unless you live in Wuhan, where it's gone back to how it was in 2019. Well, and let's not get too started on there. I believe that the world in time will eventually start asking questions to China, but let's not.
China won't give us stuff.
Well,
they've been laughing their faces off.
And I suggest that we focus on getting through this before we start sort of wagging fingers and things like that at any other country, because I think it's more important to survive this first. But I absolutely
so, but there should be some ramifications. There should be some ramifications for what.
Of course, there should be. I could not agree more. Of course, there should be ramifications for it, but now's not the time to do it.
No, I get that. You got to concentrate on You've got to bring it down to a human level and concentrate on sorting out Ray's parents and stuff like that. Melanie Hutchins is saying, whisperings that our vaccinations will be given out at our local airport eventually.
Well, it's better than doing nothing, I suppose. The
You know what? It doesn't matter where the hell it is. They could do it at B&Q. I don't give a monkeys. Just do it.
Airports are arguably one of the safest places to be at the moment. No one's going anywhere. So, but still, I don't.
Ed Grossman's making an interesting point, Ray. He says it's possible they didn't expect so many people to turn up. Well, why? Why? Based on what?
No, but you can't necessarily say why, because you know that you do hear these horror stories about how for the last few weeks I've heard about how some vaccination hotspots and centres have not had the number of people turn up despite getting the messages out. So maybe what they were thought, and it was just completely unfortunate, Ray, that your folks got caught up in this as an experiment.
I think it was, yeah.
The one time they probably oversubscribed people to come because they thought there wouldn't be enough people rocking up. Suddenly they all flock in.
Yeah, that's because they had run out. My point was, by 2 days before, they had said they had run out of vaccine, and my parents weren't due for another 2 to 3 weeks, and so we were very relieved. So I think yes, there was just a cock up, and they thought let's just get as many people as possible. But it's still, my whole point is it's still mad because it's doing exactly what the government are telling us not to do, of shoving people. And when you get a load of people around, they couldn't social distance. There was no room to social distance. And a lot of the people I'm not trying to insult anyone here, but a lot of the elderly people there, or not a lot, but a number of them were confused. They were nearly 90 years old, so they can't, like my father, he's got no spatial awareness anymore. He stands behind people. He doesn't, so, it's not his fault. He's just an old man and he can't help it. So a lot of people there were like my dad, mask slipping, not social distancing, and they can't be, there was no supervision to do that.
There's something else I want to extrapolate from this, and then we'll read some of the comments, then we get on to the other subject because it's a big one as well, right?
Yeah.
Is this when people say, "Oh, look, they're just old people, sod it. Don't worry about vaccinating them because they've had a life. Let's vaccinate the young." Right? Tell that. My parents are gone, right? Tell that to Ray. Tell that to go round to Ray's house, which you can't do. Tell that to his face. Because I find it such a revolting thing. What? You get to a certain age, well, sod you. You know, we can't be asked. You can't, that's not what being human is all about. That's the point. And when you bring it down to a level of humanity, tell that to Ray Gelato and say, well, your parents don't really count. I'm going to give it to some 20-year-old kid because they got a chance. It's just not right. It's just not right.
Well, hang on a second. The arguments I've heard from that has not necessarily been that they're casting someone of a certain age to one side. The argument that I've heard from that point of view is by getting people who are younger vaccinated first means that they can potentially return to some sense of normality and get the economy going again. That's what I've been hearing. It's not so much about sort of saying, stick it to the older members of the population.
I get that. But the vaccine is currently in limited supply. So hard decisions, and thank God I don't have to make them, or you have to make them, Phil, because who knows? Hard decisions have to be made. And
truthfully, I reckon I could have blagged one. Because I was in I haven't got any point of mine, but I was in that, the queue. We went back and I thought to myself, no way am I going to do it because these people need it, man. I don't necessarily need it, So I could have probably sat down and said, look.
You could have just rolled your sleeve up.
Yeah.
I'm Ray Gelato. Could you just...
Hey, did you have your trumpet with you?
Now then.
If
I brought that with me, I'd have cleared the room.
That would be good.
Maybe that's what you need to
do. Some great comments here. Melanie Hutchins, Linda Dave. Yes, I'm sure it'd be well organised. Agree. Supermarkets are horrendous. Well, I don't go to them at all. I haven't been to a supermarket. I haven't been in a year.
That is because earlier Mother said hopefully airports would be better than in Harrow Weald yesterday. We went to Waitrose. Thank you, Mother, for identifying somewhere to pick up and collect, and it was total chaos. I'm sure that the good people at Waitrose who are not here to defend themselves are doing the best they could. Anyway, right.
Here we go. Chrissy Ramsey. Don't know the vaccines are being wasted. What? It's not like a can of Coke. If you open it, it goes flat.
No, it's true. What Ramsey's referring to, and I have heard this as well, is that the vaccinations have to be stored, and I'm sure people have heard of all this before, have to be stored at a certain temperature. When they are brought out of that temperature, they are then active. Okay, they're active for a number of hours, and then thereafter they start losing their potency. If they've lost that potency, those vaccinations go to waste, which is why some vaccination centers put out a message to say that they have surplus vaccinations, quick, come and get it, as it were. And then you suddenly get this mad flocking going to these vaccination centers, which is why I was surprised, Ray, that sort of based on the time, because you were saying it wasn't that late in the day that this happened.
3 o'clock.
What time?
3 o'clock.
Yeah, so normally it's around the evening they start putting these call to arms out to say to folk, look, come and get, we've got vaccinations left over, let's not let them go to waste. And that's
a bit like theatre, isn't it? You can rock up to the box office, got a seat for tonight, curtains up in 10 minutes, I'll take that.
Do you remember when we
had a return? Theatre, so what we won't be using for a while. Jules Silverman, hi Jules. I agree, my parents are in their 80s. Of course I want them to have it, although my parents haven't left the house. I did feel that the secondary school goers, you see, I agree, and young 20-year-olds that are out and not social distancing should be having it first to not pass it on.
No, I think the 20-year-olds and the young schoolgoers who are out and about socialising should be punished to the high hills. That's what I think, but let's not dwell on that. Chrissy Holt, in our village, they vaccinated a woman and doctor staff, put on Facebook, but heard nothing about anyone else being vaccinated. Salah, Spain. So no clue what is happening here. Oh, okay.
It's not vaccination. He's right. There we go. Now then, hello boys. Hello Julia McDermott. There we are. Right, now then, Raymond. Yeah. You have another beef today. I think it's Rant with Ray Day.
Do I?
So you do. You have another huge beef. You do, about the notion of British musicians and all the difficulties now of working and traveling in Europe.
It's a good point. Yeah. Well, I heard
you were going berserk about it a couple of days ago.
I mean, last week we heard that the government had said that the EU had rejected the. But basically, just let me back up. What we're trying to get, all the musicians and entertainers and film people, is a single visa that allows us to work in the EU countries, a single visa, whether we have to pay something for a year or not, whatever it is, we need a single visa. At the moment, that from what I gather, that doesn't exist. In every country, you're going to have to get some kind of different bit of paperwork. The government said last week that the EU had rejected their proposals, which the governments claim they put that forward. Now we find out, and again, there's no evidence for this, so I don't know. This was in the Independent yesterday, and it's gone wild. It's sort of gone viral, that the EU had said, yes, of course, we're happy to do that. But our government has said they don't want to, they rejected it because they don't want the freedom of movement the other way, with European musicians coming in here with one single visa because they think it will be abused. That's what I gather from it. My beef is, why I'm angry and livid, is one, we're just coming out of, well, we're not coming out of it. We're in the midst of this COVID crisis, which has decimated our industry completely, ruined it, actually. And then to try to crawl through the wreckage again and have to deal with additional paperwork and bullshit that I never had to deal with in my life being a band leader. I could just go over to Europe and work and pay my taxes and pay the local to whatever I did. I find that I'm extremely angry and bitter about that, as many of us are. Why put extra work now? I mean, it's hard enough anyway. And it's just, I can't see why they can't get this sorted, and why it wasn't sorted in Boris Johnson's oven-ready Brexit deal.
Is it because I saw this and I saw these various exchanges, and musicians and artists were going absolutely berserk about it. Is it true, or is it one of these stupid fake things that was never true and it's just there to slag off? I
think there's a bit of both, Russ. I think that that what is true is there's definitely nothing solid in place, and we would like something solid in place for us so we know where the hell we are. I mean, for example, I get letters from the VAT all the time, despite the fact I've deregistered now, and I'm hearing on the radio, have you got ready for Brexit? Have you prepared? Boom, boom. Prepare for what? I don't know what to prepare for with what I'm doing. And film crews and whatever, and camera and actors are in the same boat. We don't know what to prepare for because nothing has been organized. And what we're calling for, and the Musicians Union are calling for, is a single visa where we can go about our business, work, and come back here and pay the government our taxes, which we're making. I mean, let's face it. I can't work so much in, the UK doesn't support its arts like a lot of places in Europe do. So that's why we have to work abroad. We have to. If this country was a little bit different with its view to culture, then maybe we wouldn't have to. But this is how 80% of my income is abroad. 80%. 80% of my band's income with merchandise and touring. When I say touring, festivals, is abroad. And if that gets lost, then it's pointless. Might as well just give up, because I can't rely on the work here, even when we climb out of COVID rather. So they've got to work out some kind of visa thing. But again, there's a lot of propaganda surrounding both sides, and I'm not sure what the true story is. I'm just telling you what I've read.
Here's a comment from Ramsey that Ramsey made a little earlier. Here's a story about the impact of Brexit. A friend of mine selling a musical instrument, that's why I'm mentioning it while Ray's on the show. A friend of mine selling a musical instrument had a bid from someone in Europe, agreed to sell it, but withdrew when eBay added a 30% tax surcharge. This may be happening until tax and customs arrangements are clarified.
Wow. Yeah, this is another thing about working abroad for me, because we may be charged local tax, withholding tax. There's all these sort of things that's the reason a lot of us are angry, because we knew the system before. We could work on the system before. It was a reasonably simple system, apart from the Italians, which I work on. So enough paperwork. But we knew our way around it, and now it's a whole new mountain to climb, and a lot of our stage of the game, we're not sure. I mean, if it becomes too complicated, I'm not doing it. I'll do something else. I'll have to do something else, because I can't, it's just madness to be stuck behind reams of paperwork and withholding tax and claiming your 30% back at the end of the tax year. You see what I mean? It's so this is the point. We've got no clarity at all.
And who could give you that clarity, and who's pushing for you?
Well, the Musicians Union are one who are trying to push for us. There's various bodies, there's various names in the business. What I think we need are bigger names than I am, or a lot of us to be speaking out. Your McCartneys and your Van Morrisons or whoever. I don't know. We need some really big guns gunning for us.
It's interesting because I have insomnia. So 2:00 this morning, I'm having a very long online conversation with Leo Sayer. Leo started to message me about this, and he's saying exactly the same thing. Are you going to get your holler now, Ray?
No, I'm actually doing. I'm cooking sausages for my kids because I'm homeschooling today, right? So I'm just checking. They're cooked, so I'm trying to multitask. I got my little girl and my boy up.
Genius.
It's genius, sorry, but it's real. Just carry on about Leo, because I'm very interested.
Leo says, look, can you help push this, because this, that, and the other is just crazy on behalf of them. I said, well, I can't. Who the hell am I? I'm hardly Mick Jagger or Keith Richards, although they look better than I do currently. And I said, well, why don't you do it? And he says, I think we need people in the UK. So I thought, all right, I'll see who I can speak to. See, there might be the Melanie Hutchins says, it seems so deliberate that everything's being made so difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's incompetence, Melanie. I don't think it's deliberate.
You know what I believe it is, honestly? I just think there are some things that haven't even crossed the government's mind. I'm not being funny. They're politicians. They're not musicians. So why on earth would they even think of something like this?
Well, I think they should, because I think that, whenever they mention culture, they mention the high end of the art. But people like us are always forgotten, and we're bringing in a lot of, if you compare the working bands around Europe in the summer, it works both ways. We're bringing a hell of a lot of revenue for the system. So we should be.
Ray, understand me. I'm with you all the way. I think they should, but I'm just saying I think that's possibly part of the problem, is that if they can't if they can't imagine that side of things, then it wouldn't even cross their minds. But make no mistake, they should do it. Absolutely.
If you've got to support what Phil is saying, but if you've got a load of civil servants or people drafting the legislation, they're thinking about car exports. They're thinking about huge. I know when you add it all up, the musical world, artistic world comes to billions. But they probably wouldn't cross their mind. They're thinking about, I don't know, steel and iron, or whatever the hell they make, materials and all that sort of stuff. Paul, Nathan, Phil, everything in respect of exports and imports, whether goods or services, should have been fully put in place. Yeah, that would be in Paul, you're right, in a perfect world. Ramsey says, exactly, crazy, isn't it?
Paul, to add further to that, let's not forget that yes, they should have, but when it comes to putting everything in place, there were a lot of sort of no's from both sides of the fence, let's not forget. So I don't think that necessarily that's the government's fault per se. I think both sides were being just as difficult as each other.
Well, this is where I'm confused, because last week I heard the EU had rejected the government, saying we needed this kind of like a generic working visa where we can work in all the EU countries. And then we read I think it was in the Independent yesterday, and one or two other publications, that the EU had agreed to it all and the government had rejected it. I don't know. What do I know? I just know what I read, and I can't provide any evidence to the contrary. I just would be happy if it's worked out. And to be honest with you, my positive thoughts are it will be worked out in time. It's going to have to be. I just hope it's not going to be too much any extra paperwork, because none of us need that at this stage. We're trying to climb out of this situation.
We don't.
Chrissy Holt, who lives in Spain,
on its head and say, heaven forbid, a million times that someone in the European Union decides to abuse this visa that you've sort of come up with the idea. And of course, it will have to be a two-way street. It can't just be people in the UK can have this visa to go wherever they feel like, without there being something in return for people to come to the UK in return. The problem is that if you get someone who is going to pose as some sort of musician from the continent who wants to come here to work, once they're here legitimately, in inverted commas, what on earth is there to say that they will use to bypass the point-based system that the government have been threatening to implement for a long time, and then just slip through the net anyway? So I do kind of understand sort of where the reservation is with that. It's just how you track people who come here, and probably that's not in place at the moment.
Well, perhaps they need perhaps they need what we need. We need a contract if we go abroad. If I've got a contract to when I used to apply for the A1 form, which we'd need for Italy, which was to save paying double social security, we had to supply a contract. So if the European musicians come here, they can say from the Pizza Express or Ronnie's, who bring people in, we'd like just show us the paperwork or official stuff, and hopefully Bob's your uncle.
These things are not impossible, because when I lived and worked, I lived in America for 3 years. I worked there. I had to pay American tax. Now, when I'd left the country and to come back in, they would ask you randomly, not always, but randomly, have you paid American have you been living here? Yeah. Have you got a green card? Yes, I have. And you've paid American tax? Yes. Do you have your file and your return with you? And sometime it happened to a friend of mine who I work with. He was traveling. Of course, he didn't have his tax return in his inside jacket pocket. They put him in a room. He had to stay there, and he had to get his phone, his accountant or something, who had to bring it down to the airport. It is doable. It is doable. Chrissy Holt, who lives in Spain, as we know, if you buy Amazon UK, you have to pay tax and VAT. I now have to pay 15 euros commission for transferring money. Not happy. Kiss, kiss. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. It's a work. The trouble is, it's a work in progress. It's not fine.
Just get my cigars back from Spain, Russ. They've been sitting there. They've been sitting there from mid-December in Spain, and I can't get them. They're a box of Magnum 45s.
Wait a minute.
Stuck over there.
I'm going to go an undercover mission. For sure, there are other countries wanting to leave. The uncertainties perhaps put those countries off leaving. It won't.
Isn't it funny? You know what? Isn't it really funny how people perceive things? Because I would say the difficulties the European Union are putting in the way of the British trying to leave the European Union, I suspect, twofold. Number one, I think they want to demonstrate that if you want to leave the EU, we're not going to make it easy for you. And number two is I actually think that's going to make some countries more determined, because they'll see the way they're behaving off the back of this, I believe. But isn't perspective a funny thing? Because that's obviously the way that Paul sees it, is that he believes that people will be put off by it. But I don't personally think so. I just think...
Then you got comments like this from Kimmy Lashmar. Kimmy says, I read one of the Tories opposed to lockdown because he can't play golf. They're all manipulatives only if it affects them. It's so easy to spin a story like that. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not untrue. I don't know the circumstances, Kimmy.
And it could also be easy to be spinning scare stories about our situation. And believe me, I'm aware of that because I like to look at both sides. I just hope, the final thing I'll say on it, I just hope they can resolve it so it's pretty much similar to how it was before.
Ed Grossman's upset. We're not ignoring your comments. I haven't seen your comments. Calm down, Phil.
We haven't read a lot of comments out. It's not because
I'm on your side, but why should we get a visa that does not exist? Don't understand. What does that mean? Ed, that's the only comment I've got from you.
Well, we're going to need one if we need one to work over there, we need one to work over there. So that's all I can say, and if you can't work there without a visa, they're going to have to create one.
Yeah.
Because.
Well, I still think that Ray's Cafe, you and I kneeling, running the new Ray's Cafe, I think that's the way forward. This is it.
It might be the only way forward.
I'm up for it. I love stuff like that. And Paul Nathan saying that the EU's aim was to put others off.
Personally, I believe that you'd actually be better off if you open up some sort of gelatery and then you can have gelato's gelatery. I think that'd be much better.
Ed, do you want to join it? Have we got time? We've just got time for you to. Do you want to join in? Russ, this is my subject. Come on. Right, visas and stuff. Right, Ed, do you want to join in? Phone Phil, and you can come on the show now because I'm not. I don't know what your subject is in exact detail. So you're very, very welcome. Ray, important question. Many people want to know: how are the sausages?
Let me have a look. They're pretty much done for the kids.
Because you understand that we have to put up with Phil's holler every Friday. So it's nice on a Monday, the sort of yin and yang of the show, to see sausages.
I love the sound. I love the sound of the holler rather than the sausages.
Every Friday, it's a big deal. It's part of the show. It wasn't intended. It's just how Phil runs his life.
If you want to make $1, have some of Phil's holler.
Ed Grossman says, Ray, hold on, please. That's not true. I represent USA artists who can't get a so-called EU visa.
Well, I don't know. He knows better than me. I'm only going by what I read, and I don't know what I need to work in Europe after the Brexit thing. If someone tells me, I'm very happy, but I don't think it's been arranged yet.
Ed 0203 290 4411. That's the telephone number.
Seriously, come and phone in and take part because you've obviously got proper inside knowledge, which would be really bloody handy.
Exactly. I'm saying I'm not sitting here. I'm saying I don't know anything about what I need, and I haven't been told anything about what I need to go abroad, and I don't think it's been arranged for what I need to work abroad at the moment.
It is interesting though, Ray. You've made so many very, very valid points. But one of the things you said is all the time on TV, 1st of January, are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah. You've got all these people marching up and down factories and they're all busy and everything. And I'm sitting there going, what do I do? Write books and do radio. So I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. So I don't running a factory. I haven't got export. I've got nothing. Right. And then there's you saying, well, I'd like to be ready, but I don't know what to be ready for because no one's told me. Have we got Ed?
Gentlemen, hold that line because here he is. Afternoon, Ed.
Hi, Ed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Phil, for taking my call.
Pleasure.
Hi, Ray.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Look, I've just got a couple of comments to make. First of all, let me make it quite clear. I'm on your side.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's that? Stop me?
No. He's just saying hello. Go for it.
Okay. I'll start again. Ray, thank you. First of all, let me emphasize I'm on your side. Most of the subject that you're talking about is what I do for a living. Yes, I mainly represent USA artists who have had this sort of issue since I can remember, because they're not part of the EU. What you're talking about is normal day-to-day stuff for them. They have agents who deal with it all the time. It's not a bigger deal. These countries in Europe have their own visa issues. Some don't need visas, some do. I've had all sorts of problems mainly, believe it or not, in France and Italy. I've had people fined in France, both UK people and people from North America, because they can't produce a social security document, for example. Why?
Yep.
Because they're under 18 and don't pay social security, or they're over 65 and don't pay social security and drive trucks and buses. So what happens? We get fined, and I'm talking about USA artists and I'm talking about UK artists. There's no such thing as an EU visa. We've never had one. We've had free movement, but that's us. Now we're out of the EU. Let's not debate that. Now out of the EU, we're in the same position everybody else in the rest of the world is. Some people are very happy about the fact that European orchestras, for example, can't just come in anymore at the drop of a hat and pay their people nothing, undercut our musicians who can't get any work. So that's a flip side of the coin. I'm not defending it.
I've never heard that happening.
Observation. Pardon?
Where are European musicians undercutting people in the UK? Where does that happen?
In the classical world. Actually.
Okay, I don't know about the classical world. It doesn't happen in my world.
I'm talking about Europe, musicians such as yourself coming in from Europe. So hardly anybody comes here from Europe. We go there, they don't come here.
So, Ed, do you sort out the contracts? I don't know specifically what you do. Do you sort out the contractual arrangements or the legal side of it? What do you do? What's your speciality?
Specifically, Ray, I handle tax and social security obligations for artists from outside the UK coming into the UK and Europe.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What do you think then this Brexit will mean for us? Say my main territories that I work in my band are Spain and Italy. We do a lot of work there every year. How will this in Europe, what will I need to work in these countries now? Whereas I didn't need anything before apart from an A1 form to work in Italy.
I think I'm not quite sure the exact visa requirements for Italy, because within all the clients I deal with, they have an agent, and the agent's job, amongst other things in booking the show, is to get visas where necessary. And
well, I have an agent over there too. So will it be his job to get the work visa if that's what I'm going to need now?
Absolutely. You shouldn't even be thinking about the visa. If an agent books you into a show in Italy or France or anywhere else, it's their job to get the visa. It always has been. There's nothing new in that. You shouldn't be worrying about that.
Well, the only thing new with it, for us is before in Italy and Spain, I'd say the only bit of paperwork I ever needed was the A1 form. And I doubt whether that's going to be needed anymore because we've left the EU.
Yes, it will be needed. It will be needed at least there's only two countries that ask for it at this moment, and that is France and Italy. Yeah, and they haven't changed their minds. We're outside the EU, so whatever the regulations are for people outside the EU will apply.
Right.
So, but if I've got it from a non-technical viewpoint, the situation that Ray and his band and everybody else, the UK artist, is facing is exactly the same as, say, any American artist has always faced when wanting to play in Europe. Is that about a summary?
Exactly, Russ. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely. 100% spot on. I would add that they don't wake up in the night, these people in America, and worry about it, because that's what their agent does for their X%. It's their job.
So the only problem is I don't want the cost passed on to me or my band because we can't afford it. We're running on a shoestring anyway.
The costs, I'm not sure about the costs. There's the companies that deal with visas all the time. It's like not something. The only problems I've seen in visas is when a band comes over and they bring a huge entourage with them who pretend to be working. That's a problem. Apart from that, I've never seen anybody complain. Ever. They've got agents who deal with it. This is their job. It's booking a show. You get the visa. Can't get the visa, you don't do the show. I mean,
no, wait. A lot of musicians who I know work in Europe don't have agents. They'll deal with the thing direct. So the visa's going to be on their head to try to get that, which is a pain in the arse when it wasn't this way before we left the EU. We could just go. So why is that acceptable?
I'm not denying it's a pain in the arse. What I am saying, but I kicked off this discussion, by the way, by trying to stop you from saying, or not stop you from saying, but to put you right on this thing about we want the EU visa. There isn't an EU visa. These countries, these 27 countries, are not in a union as far as visas are concerned. So why should there be an EU visa? There's never been one. Each country has its own rules. It's not a union in this subject.
Nobody needed a work permit to work there before.
It's not a union. Each country's got its own rules.
Yes, but Ed, I think what Ray was referring to quite rightly is that people had, before leaving the European Union, which, don't get me wrong, it's been and done. We've left the European Union now. There's no point in dwelling on this. But the point is, beforehand, there was no need to apply for a visa when you were traveling between European Union countries, was there? Because people could just move freely around. And I think that's sort of more the point, is that with the lack of freedom of movement, which, don't get me wrong, is part and parcel of the deal of leaving the European Union, it suddenly makes it much more difficult for working musicians and other people who do work to have to travel around.
Agree.
So don't get me wrong,
no,
though.
I totally agree. You're absolutely right. I was just trying to put in... I kicked this off. Let me emphasize. I kicked off this argument by trying to explain to Ray that the desire, that who asked for the EU visa and who said yes to it, who said no to it, and all of that. I don't believe any of it, because it isn't an EU visa. Someone has invented the idea of an EU visa.
No, they haven't invented it. They were trying to push for it. No, they were trying to push for it, Ed, to make it easier for people like us to work. They weren't inventing it. They're trying to push for it. It's something people were trying to push for. So we're not going to have each individual visa and each individual agent trying to find a visa. Can't you see that?
Yeah, but you're asking for 27 countries to get together all of a sudden and discuss visas for musicians. They've never had this discussion before. It doesn't exist.
So Jules Silverman is saying this, everybody. Previously, you could work in the EU when we were part of the EU, right? Now, if you want to work in the EU, you need to apply for a visa to the country you are going to. You can't get an EU visa. In other words, I think Jules is saying,
yeah,
we're slightly cross-purpose. I think
we're at cross purposes because I haven't come up with the idea of the EU visa. This is all what I'm reading about the newspapers and what the government have tried to propose and what the Musicians Union are trying to propose. It's not my idea. It would be a fantastic idea to me because it would make my life easier. I'm just telling you what I've been reading about the whole Brexit scenario.
Right.
Who am I? I don't know. I'm a blooming working musician who are just trying to make my life and my band's life easier.
Gentlemen, do you know what? Sadly, I'm afraid that's where we do have to leave it because we are sort of out of time for today. But thank you very much, Ed. Thank you for calling in. And
thank you, Ed. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Another time, carry on the conversation if you so wish. But just unfortunately for today, that's where we have to leave it. And I suppose that we have to thank you, Mr. Gelato, as well. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time out, for coming on, telling us exactly sort of what your situation is. And look, what can I say? I hope for your sake that sort of that your work returns sooner rather than later, because I think it's horrific what's happened to the entertainment world, and I personally can't wait to see.
Shocker. But on the plus side, very, very quickly, on the plus side, when this nightmare finally eases a little bit, I think people will go potty and want as much entertainment and music and art as they can.
Here's hoping. Ray, thank you. Keep well.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Russ. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ed. Thank you, guys.
Bye. There we go. Yes, I can't help but wonder whether or not that they will actually be able to come back with sort of with sort of performances like that. Okay, but yeah, we're living hope. What can we do?
I'm practicing. The next thing is to work out. Do you blow or suck on a saxophone? It's early days.
Who only knows? If only we had a saxophonist who could tell us. Anyway,
world famous.
That got quite heated today, to say the least, and it was not.
I thought it was really constructive. I thought it was actually very constructive.
I mean, I dare say that it wasn't necessarily what we usually focus on here on Men's Radio, but it just goes to show how much people are troubled by everything at the moment. So whether or not it is political or not, it's something that is clearly playing on the minds of many, and it clearly causes a lot of anxiety. So frankly,
Phil, if you haven't got livelihood, your mental health is going to get stretched.
Well,
because you're anxious. It's as simple as that.
We'll do it all over again on Wednesday, shall we? We'll see you at midday. Thank you for your comments, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, gang.